Welcome to Behind the Tools. Here's Tradify CEO and your host, Michael Steckler.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Behind the Tools. Delighted this week to have Jon Szabo, who is at JS Plastering, and he's out in Mildura in Australia, which is in Victoria. I guess the closest city, John, would be probably Adelaide. Is that probably the closest big city?
Yeah, it would be. Yeah, Adelaide and Melbourne. We're kind of in the middle a bit.
It's right in the middle of the two. Yeah, cool. Well, look, thanks for joining the show. Great to have you on board.
Thank you.
And I think you're our first, I feel like I'm saying this every week now, but our first plasterer we've had on. So that's good to see. Do you want to maybe talk a little, maybe, do you want to maybe start by telling us a little bit about the business?
Well, JS Plastering officially started in 2014, but before then I used to trade as JB and Sons Plastering. But unfortunately the B ran off with the son, so I had to do something about the name.
Hold on. So the B was the B and their son, and then you?
Yeah, so it was John and Beck Plastering, pretty much, yeah, and Sons, because I had a few boys with it. But yeah, so I rebranded as JS Plastering, and been going really great since. So got a fair bit of work here and there. Started off small, still am kind of small, but starting to get a little bit bigger now. As we're looking into bigger projects, we got new staff. So yeah, it's been really good.
Great. And how was that experience? When you say you ran off, was that an amicable break, or was that a...
Not quite. It was a bit of a heartbreaker, but in the end I got over it and realised that it's not the type of person I wanted to be with anyway.
Yeah, did you get not to dwell on it, but I think it's not an uncommon story. I've seen it with businesses. This sort of happens a lot. They get into business with someone and it doesn't work out for whatever reason. Is there anything you learned from that you would do differently or not do?
I've actually learned a fair bit. Like generally, most of the reason behind it all was work. I was working just as a employee for a plastering company, and then I was doing my cashies and whatnot after hours, because like we were quite a large size family, so I worked quite a lot. So I've now realised that that's not really a good thing to do. So I've cut back on the amount of work I do and try and have more family time, especially now in a new relationship and have a stepchild. And I devote as much time as I can to them.
Yeah, cool, great. And so, in terms of, I think are you 4 employees right now in your company?
I got 2 employees and 1 subcontractor.
Yeah.
So, and without them, I'll be run off my feet trying to get jobs done and whatnot.
Yeah.
With Tradify, it's helped organising work, and it's been going great.
Good, that's great. Good to hear. And and so can you talk us through maybe going back to that evolution of the break and then setting up as JS? How did you grow the business? Did you have a kind of a book of people you already knew and worked with, ex-customers that you sort of took with you? How did that evolve?
So I had a bit of a break from plastering altogether. I kind of blamed plastering and a few other things for the relationship breakdown. But I had an opportunity that arose, and it made me start up business again. And that was working for a local builder here and start contracting again. So I started doing that, rebranded as JS Plastering. Had a couple of guys on at the time, just subcontractors working for me. And everything was going smoothly until my health ended up going downhill, and later discovered that I had stage 2 bowel cancer.
Oh God, sorry to hear that.
Yeah, so I had to shut the business down again and fought the cancer, and I had to start again pretty much because the guys that I had went elsewhere. Contracts I had, they obviously went elsewhere. So I had to start the business all over again, and I started a little bit differently on how I ran things and managed things, sorted out my terms and conditions and whatnot to make sure that I got paid, and just kind of refocused on everything and took everything that I've learned from the past, all my mistakes and all the issues that I had, and pretty much changed it all. So from there, I took on, some bigger stuff. I've done some shop fit outs and whatnot to get my name out there. Some of the old contractors that I've dealt with in the past, they come back to me. So it's all probably from building the base part of the business, like getting my name, and like I had a good name. Well, I still do have a good name in the industry here in Mildura. So I kind of worked on that, and then just kept building and building and building.
Well, look, congratulations firstly, and and sorry to hear about and I presume you're fully in remission now. And
I've been in remission. I think I'll be coming up to 5 years now in January.
Oh, good stuff.
Yeah,
great.
Yeah,
that's good to hear. Fantastic.
Yeah, and even beforehand, like my old boss, he used to say, "Oh, you'll never make it. You're not a good plasterer, rah rah." And I thought, well, I'm going to prove you wrong. And I've had him come to me asking for work, like asking if I can do some work for him and whatnot. So I feel that
did he acknowledge when he asked you for that work? Did you remind him of his previous review?
I actually needed work at the time, but I turned around and said, "Look, mate, I'm just so flat out. I can't do it. But yeah, thanks for the offer."
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And what do you think? What was it? How did you go about making that name for yourself? I mean, you'd already done some work, but what was the important things you think you did to establish that reputation?
Drive to succeed. Yeah, pretty much just the drive and the passion to succeed, and either not be the best, but be one of the best. Yeah.
And is there anything you do, particularly when you approach how you approach customers and when you approach jobs and how you manage that you think is different?
Well, I always have a bit of banter with customers and build up the rapport, build up the trust in the customer first. And a lot of customers, they come to me from Facebook. That's where most of my advertising comes from. And I do a lot of little videos of my work, and I present my business really well with those videos. And most of it's from word of mouth. So I don't really chase for my customers. I do have radio ads, and they do seem to work. I've just picked up a contract today, which is great, from the radio ad, but I don't really need advertising.
What made you do I'm intrigued because generally this the thing we regularly hear is people don't need ads as much, right? The best work comes from word of mouth and recommendations. What prompted you to run bearing that in mind, to run the radio ads?
More just to target the market that's not on social media,
right? More
or less. So, and also just to push out there and maybe put in everyone else's face that, I'm doing it, I'm succeeding, and, I'm still around. Because I've had a lot of people that ridicule me and whatnot, because I wasn't the best apprentice. But I ended up bettering myself and getting out there and proving to people that you're wrong.
Talk me through that. When you were an apprentice, firstly, was that a fair reflection of you as an apprentice, or?
Yeah, well, as an apprentice, my first boss was really good. He taught me a lot of things, and he was great. It was just the people I worked with I didn't really like.
Right.
I was like, I don't know, I was kind of a shy kind of guy. It took a while for me to get out of my shell. I was very conservative, which probably being conservative doesn't help to be a tradesman. Got to have a little bit of crudeness and a bit of banter in you, which I've picked up in the past. But kind of ignored all that kind of things and just focused on doing my trade and trying to get somewhere in life. I ended up leaving my apprenticeship probably in my third year, I think it was. No, second year, just after my second year, before my third year. I applied for the Air Force and ended up having a bit of a bingle in Melbourne with my car. So I was stuck in Melbourne for a while, and I ended up liking the place. So I told my boss I quit.
A bit of a what? Sorry, did you say?
A bit of a bingle with a car accident.
Oh, is that? Oh,
Yeah.
sorry, that's a new one
Australian
on me.
slang.
Yeah.
So I had a bit of a car accident, and I was stuck in Melbourne for
That's
a
a
while.
funny one because it makes it sound like it's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I quit my job and went a different path. I went in doing sales and whatnot. But it wasn't until when my dad was on his last legs, so to speak, with cancer as well. And he's pretty much said, I really would like to see you finish your apprenticeship, because otherwise, it's thrown away 2 years of your life. It'd be really good if you finished it. And if I wasn't around, I'd like you to do it, not for yourself, but do it for me. And, make me really proud. Anyway, 2 days later, Dad passed. And I actually put it into action. I started looking to getting back into my apprenticeship and finishing it. So, which I did.
Yeah, sorry to hear that, but it's worked out. It sounds like it was.
Yeah,
it seems like it was good advice.
Yeah, it was. It was good advice, and I finished off my apprenticeship with pretty much what I'd describe as a tyrant. He was a bad boss. The guys I worked for was great, especially one of them. He showed me all the ropes.
Yeah.
And he was much younger than me, and I looked up to him and tried to be as good as him. I'm now better because he's no longer doing the trade. And as soon as the apprenticeship ended, I got out of there. So I wasn't going to stick around.
Yeah, I'd like to touch on that because I think it's one of the things I've heard on here before and from other people is that the way apprentices historically were treated and versus I think there sort of seems to be a newer group of people that are treating them differently, partly because of their own experience, right, of being treated badly. I think if you've ever had a bad boss at some point early in your career, you tend to reflect, unfortunately, more on the bad ones than the good ones because you sort of are determined not to become that type of leader, manager,
that's
boss
exactly
to someone else. Has that affected your approach in terms of?
It has. When I first started with this boss, he got me to sand a ceiling with a sander machine. Never done it my entire life. Had a quick rundown, and he said, "Right," he said, "I want this ceiling done by the end of the weekend." Yeah, no worries. Done the ceiling, and I trashed it. Like it was destroyed. Yeah. It was bad. I think ever since then he had bad blood for me. He always used to put me down. He always used to be tough but nasty, tough,
right,
kind of thing. And I always said to myself, look, just keep doing it, finish your apprenticeship, do it for Dad, get out of there. And then I always said to myself, look, there's no way I'll ever treat my workers or my apprentices the way I was treated, which is I don't. I treat my workers with respect. I treat them the way I'd like to be spoken to.
Yeah.
And they're actually been quite loyal and stuck with me.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Which is, if nothing else, it's a good business reason to be good, leaders to people because ultimately, and it's not easy finding good people nowadays, I think, in trades.
No, well, that's right. And at the end of the day, as a business owner, you're not just a business owner, you're a mentor, you're a coach, and you're a leader. If you're none of those things and you just, a tyrant and, just a boss, your workers won't respect you, and the quality of work that you want them to achieve won't happen because they just don't care. They just won't want to be there. And that's how I was. At the end of the day, I felt like, well, I'm busting my nut for you. You're getting all the credit, and I'm just getting crapped all over. So, what's the point of me being here? I don't reflect that on my workers. I want my workers to stay here and do the job and make the business money and be happy.
Yeah, good. That's great. It's good to hear. And when you're in the other business, how did you learn about things like pricing and charge out all the way to the business side of it, which coming from being an apprentice into a business, where did you pick that stuff up from?
The pricing part was pretty hard because it's not something you really learn at school, or even trade school even. asked for some advice off a plasterer once and said, oh, don't tell me what you charge, but what should I be charging? And I reckon that plasterer gave me the wrong advice. He gave me really low rates and I ended up becoming too cheap to other people. And I used to have other plasterers saying, oh, you're too cheap, Johnny, rah, rah, it's unfair that you're charging these prices. You're getting all the work, but, how are you making money? And I looked at my pricing and whatnot, and I spoke to some other plasterers and, just asked, this is what I'm charging. Tell me, am I too cheap or am I in the middle or what? And they actually said, yeah, you're too cheap. You should be charging somewhere around here. And I said, well, I really appreciate the advice. I'll look over my pricing and I'll change it. So I slowly upped it, because if I just did it straight away on a big increase, people will walk away and I won't get work because they're used to these cheap prices that I was charging. So I slowly upped it and then went from there. But like I said, when I restructured my whole business from JB and Sons to JS, that's when I looked at all my pricing and whatnot and all the mistakes I made in the past. Like I used to price jobs, like so, it was $12 a square meter, and that include cornicing, all the steel angles and everything. Whereas later I learnt that I'm supposed to charge a linear meterage for the cornicing and all the steel beads and all that. I'm like, holy crap, I've lost out on so much money. So it's mostly talking to other people in the industry that really helped me to build to where I am now with the pricing structure. And I still do ask. My main supplier, he's a contractor as well. And I'd say, look, what should I be charging per meter for doing this? Like, it's all new to me, and it pretty much tells me. So,
which is it's why I mean, you hit on a really good point. I think one of the most common problems is unprofitability, where people are they're really, really busy, and the business goes under, and people sort of go, oh, they were really busy. They had tons of work. Why did they go under? And it's exactly what you described. It's just not pricing at the appropriate rate.
Yeah,
it's
that's
quite hard.
right.
Then quite hard to get out of that, because you've set an expectation with potential customers about what you charge, and you might actually in some instances get the wrong type of customers coming to you for work because they want the cheapest price versus maybe the best job. So that's definitely a learning. And how have you approached, have you had any difficult customers? I've always think of plastering as one of those, there's nothing like a freshly plastered wall. It's amazing. But how do you get difficult customers? Is that something you have to deal with a lot?
I've had a few difficult customers in the past. Mostly I've had probably the worst one I had, or one of the worst ones, is that I'd done a job a couple of years ago, and I had to plaster these walls. And I just went in, I put the board on the walls, finished off the joints, sanded it, corniced it as per normal. And then the customer goes to me and goes, oh, the walls are wonky. I said, are they? And he goes, yeah. He said, oh, I'm not paying for wonky walls. I said, well, I'm a plasterer, not a carpenter. I said, I did explain to you at the start that the walls need to be plaster ready, and you need to straighten your walls if they need to, and you neglected to do that. So, and I put the walls on. So it's not my fault. He goes, oh, but the walls got to be straight. You're plasterer, you've got to make sure they're straight. I said, no, I don't. But yeah, so they ended up getting pretty bad. To the point that he went to threaten legal action and whatnot, and I ended up getting another plasterer out there, and he explained it to him as well, and he just in the end said, oh, just take your money and go. So I was in the right at the time, but I felt like I was done something wrong by the customer. So yeah, there was a bit of a hard one, that one. And the only other customer I've ever walked out on before was he wanted me to do something that was against standards. He wanted me to fix the ceiling directly underneath a ceiling. So just screw the plasterboard like straight up onto the ceiling with no battens or anything like that. And then, hopefully it all fixes his problem. And I said to him, I said, mate, I can't do that. I've got to batten it out. So I'll go screw battens up, and then I'll go fix the plaster on there. Oh, no, I don't want that. I just want you to put it straight up there. And I said, no, I'm not doing it. He goes, oh, well, what if I just sign a waiver and say, you know, I'll be liable for anything happens? And I said, so if you sign a waiver and I screw that ceiling up and your kids are sitting there and watching TV and that ceiling comes down on top of their head and puts them in hospital, you're not going to come after me. Oh, yeah, no, you'd be right to just do it. I said, no, I'm not doing it, mate.
Crazy.
He goes, oh, well, I'm not going to pay you. I said, well, that's fine. I said, here's an invoice. I'll do an invoice for what we've done so far. You can pay me that and we'll call it quits. And if you find someone else that does it your way, so be it. And he's like, oh, no, I'm not going to pay. I'm not going to pay. And I said, well, I'm not leaving until you pay. And he ended up bringing the police. And they come out and I said to him, I thought, this is what it is. I said, I've got regulations and standards I've got to follow. He wants me to breach that. So I've pulled the pin on the job and I'll just give him the bill for what we've done. He's like, all right. He said, oh, well, this is civil matter, so nothing to do with us. And took off. And he actually said to the bloke, said, mate, you should pay the guy. He said, because, he's done what he needs to do. He's not going to proceed any further. And he's within his right to take it to court or whatever if you don't want to pay. So he ended up paying, eventually, I think it took him about 3 or 4 weeks. He ended up paying after I got a lawyer's letter written up. And I think he was probably the worst customer I've ever had. And that was back when I first started. Yeah. So that was way back when I first started out on my own. And, I didn't like being intimidated by this person, that I ended up going through the proper legal channels and
which is
getting
the way to handle it.
Because I do everything by the book. I won't take shortcuts. I won't do nothing for no one. So it's either you do it by the book or I don't do it at all.
Yeah. Why would you? Why would you want a ceiling coming down on someone's head?
Exactly.
And is there any way? Do you think in those situations, is there any way you look back on any of those situations, think there's something you could have seen to sort of spot that? I guess predict that person was going to potentially be a pain.
Yeah, I kind of sometimes when people ask for jobs, they kind of dictate what they want done and how they want it.
Yeah.
So I'll go there and I advise them, this is how it's got to be done, rah, rah, rah. He goes, oh, but, I've seen on YouTube, this and that. And I said, well, I got my trade certificate off YouTube as well. But I also done a 4-year trade apprenticeship and I've learned all these things and this is how it is. So it's either I do it this way or I'm not doing the job at all. And they've been pretty cool with that. But YouTube's just been a pain in the bum sometimes. It's like, oh, this is how they do it on YouTube. It's like, well,
I think it's fine if you're going to fix it yourself and then you take your responsibility. It's not quite the same. I think if you spoke to the medical profession, they'd have similar points of view about the. It's actually quite empowering to be able to use the internet to look up stuff, but the downside is people start to get into self-diagnosis and
that's right.
that can be quite
I use
dangerous.
YouTube myself at work. Sometimes I just don't remember how to do certain things. I just YouTube it and it's like, oh yeah, that's it. Easy done.
Yeah, it's become really, it's actually funny because a lot of trades companies do use it in that way, right? To either see how other people are doing stuff, keep up to date on new things. And it's become quite a global phenomenon. I think there's a lot of plumbers, electricians, carpenters, plasterers looking at other people all over the world doing things in slightly different ways. And so I think it's been great for that. I think the downside, of course, is you have a base level of knowledge at least.
That's right.
Because there's safety involved in some of this stuff. And so I think if there's certain things I would do and there's certain things I just wouldn't do around my house myself, right? If it involves gas, electrics, or most other things, I'm not gonna touch it. I'm gonna get a professional in. That's really cool. And then, one of the other areas I wanted to touch on was, the future for you in terms of growth of the business. You're at a decent size now. Is your plan to keep growing, or what's the intention?
Yeah, well, at the moment, I'm trying to grow the business and get staff stable and able to work unsupervised and without me being a shadow. Mainly because I've got to have a surgery on my arm soon because the trade has killed it. It's given me a severe tennis elbow. So I'm trying to build up on my staff at the moment. And like I said, I'm looking at bigger and better things as well. Like I've got a big project I'm in the middle of tendering at the moment. It's probably one of the biggest jobs that I've actually ever tackled.
Yeah.
I did and ah about it and thought, oh, maybe I should just say, no, I'm not going to quote it. It's too big. And then I thought, you know what, I'm not going to grow if I don't have a go. So hopefully, fingers crossed, it works out my way, and it helps us grow and get our name a little bit better. But yeah, I don't intend on slowing down.
Yeah.
I'm always open to new opportunities, and I had a builder just out of the blue. So I've heard your ad on the radio today.
Oh wow, great for the radio ad.
Yeah. He's like, oh, I was just wondering if you're interested in doing our work for insurance work and renovations and whatnot. And he explained to me that they're doing a huge upgrade in some of the local schools soon, and they're getting into housing. I thought, mate, I'm not going to say no.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Cool. And then with that sort of, I presume big jobs like that, anything else brings quite a lot of stress and essential anxiety, and being the person that's, you've got employees that work for you that you need to pay and do all that stuff. How do you balance that? How do you juggle that? How do you deal with that stress?
It's I kind of just bite my nails and think, we'll just see how we go, kind of thing. Like that's what stops me from going for the bigger stuff. Is my anxiety on getting paid, especially dealing with out-of-towners and whatnot. But I've dealt with some out-of-towners in the past, and I still have them anxieties, especially now I've got staff and whatnot I need to pay, but I'm a little bit more eased on it. But yeah, it is kind of stressful. But I kind of just take it as it comes now. Especially after having cancer and whatnot, I've learnt that life's short, and there's no need to dwell on things. Just keep moving forward.
That's a huge that does put some perspective on things.
So having the cancer changed a whole heap of things in my perspective and everything. As far as my custody arrangements with my kids that I haven't had, and just everything on life itself, like little things. It's no use dwelling on little things, because you just need to just keep progressing and moving forward, because you can't just leave something hold you back. It's kind of probably what I do now. It's just take it as it comes. And I got my partner. She's like, just don't worry about it. We'll deal with it when it comes. So she kind of reminds me of what I plan on doing anyway.
I think having someone, I've heard that from other people, having someone there that supports you even when they're,
my partner, my new partner I have now has been a great support in like the business itself and everything. Like I was a little worried at the start. I was doing, so much extra hours with work, or having to work on a weekend, and I was scared I was going to let her down. But she was complete opposite of my ex-partner, and she understands that I'd need to be out there working so I can pay for the electricity bill and the gas bill and the rent and whatnot. So whereas the ex-partner always wanted me around, and I don't think she really understood that things got to be paid, because she never worked. I think she's more of like my yin to my yang kind of thing with my new partner. She keeps me balanced.
Great. Yeah. Good. And then, last couple of questions, or the last one really is, one is, you talked about your staff. Are you planning to bring on apprentices, bearing in mind your own experience? And
I am actually. I've got a labourer at the moment, and he's a great bloke, and he's one of my old school friends. But the only downside is he has a learning disability, so I can't teach him any more stuff than what I've already taught him, because I'll just be pulling my hair out. And I worked out that if I was to teach him how to plaster it, I'll probably be doing it for the next 20 years. So as much as a good worker he is, our workload is increasing. So I am looking at putting an apprentice on next year to to pretty much teach my wisdom to, and get things done the way I want it done. Because at the moment, my plasterer that I have on wages is old school. He's like old enough to be my father. So he plasters the old school way. It's really hard to teach a dog new tricks, so to speak.
Yeah.
But especially with technology, like the logging in and timesheets and whatnot has been a bit of a task for him. So I'd like to have someone fresh and teach them everything, and maybe even lead the business on in the future. Hopefully,
Right.
fingers crossed.
Yeah.
But yeah. So yeah, I am looking at expanding and putting on an apprentice. So I'll probably do one next year and maybe another one the following year.
Yeah. Cool. Great. Fantastic. And then
I don't want to get big too quick.
No, I was going to say, I mean, that's always the balancing act. So any words of advice for anyone else that's sort of listening and maybe going through the same thing, thinking about going out on their own or have just started out on their own? Anything you look back on that you think would be the most important thing to consider?
Probably one of the most important things to consider is like the taxation side of things. Is make sure you down pat with that and don't fall behind. So especially like in my case, I ended up using GST quite a lot,
right?
From in my past relationship, and run up a huge debt, and it kind of lingers around, doesn't go away. So yeah, make sure you got all your bookkeeping correct, and treat your workers with respect for the way you want to be treated. Be a leader as well as a mentor, not just be a boss. Obviously, there's a fine line between boss and a mate, but I kind of find a happy medium with that, and maintain that relationship with my workers. And also quality of work. You've got to have quality of work. Otherwise, if you produce crap quality, well, you're going to get a bad name. Bad names, no work. So, and organisation, that's a big one. I have so many people that say, oh, I had someone say they were going to come and do a quote, and they never showed up. Or, oh, I had such and such do a quote for me, but they never got back to me. So always get back to your quotes. Like that's a big one. I've won so many jobs just for the simple fact that I sent a quote back within either a couple of days of doing the job. And what I found with Tradify is that with the inquiry section, I now go into a job and I fill out the inquiry section with just rough notes of what's involved with the job, what material I'm going to need. And all I got to do is do a kind of a copy paste kind of thing to a quote, fill out all the material costs, and then send it away. And customers are quite happy with that. So
cool.
Also maybe different payment options, because things are getting tight these days. And buy now, pay later is getting a big thing. I kind of look at myself as a pioneer in that kind of thing here in Mildura, like for the plastering industry. I think I'm the only plasterer that's doing it, but I do a buy now, pay later, similar to Zip Pay and whatnot.
Right. Yeah.
So I do Hum, which is run by Certegy. And also partnered up with a finance company that does loans as well. So I have different options out there for clients, and sometimes that helps me win jobs too. Like that won me one today, because I said, look, Christmas has come around the corner. I know it's going to be a big amount to spend, but I do an interest-free option. If you're willing to do that, then you can get your reno done through myself, and then still have Christmas money.
Yeah, it's definitely an area I think it's going to keep growing in that space. Yeah, for sure.
But definitely, like if you're going out on your own and starting yourself, always follow up on your quotes, and always send them out, and treat your workers with respect. And I reckon you'll go far.
Great advice. Now we always finish with a few quick fire questions, so I'm gonna hit you with these. If you weren't a plasterer, what trade would you pick?
I wanted to be an electrician at school. but I'd done a certificate basic in electronics course and I stuffed around too much and failed. So that kind of put me off it. But I actually wanted to be in the Air Force.
Yeah.
So I wanted to be a pilot, but then I found that my eyes were no good. So I wanted to be a military working dog handler. But that didn't go my way either. So I ended up relying on the trade.
Yeah. Cool.
So I could have done a different trade other than plastering because it's not the easiest trade to do. But yeah, I enjoy what I do.
Yeah, good. Glad to hear it. The other one is like your lunch when you're out on site. What would be your go-to lunch? I guess if you had a choice versus something you have every day.
Junk. I'm not a fan of taking lunches to work, but sometimes I have to on some jobs because they're a little bit far away from civilization, so to speak.
Yeah.
But no, winter pies, definitely.
Yeah.
Summer salad rolls, or your McDonald's or KFCs and all that type of stuff. Yeah, like I said, junk.
Junk food. Yeah, well, that seems to be the common answer. And then it's starting to open up in Victoria a lot more now, which is been good to see. Is there a sporting event or a music event you'd want to get to now things are opening up?
I actually am going to the Mornington Country Music Festival in March next year. Which I'm kind of looking forward to it, but kind of not. I'm not a country music fan myself, but I've been.
Oh, you're not a fan?
No,
I
I've been roped
you were when you
by
said
the
that.
missus. So my partner, she loves country music, and I support her, and what.
That's a whole weekend of it. Is that a whole weekend of country music? Oh.
It's the day trip, I think, for the festival itself. But yeah, we're gonna make a weekend of it.
Nice.
But I'm looking forward to holidays, but I don't know where to go. Because,
Anywhere.
Yeah. Borders are a little bit funny at the moment. Victoria is completely open. South Australia is just starting to open up, but they have rules. Queensland, they have rules. Western Australia, well, they might as well be like Donald Trump and build a wall because they just don't want no one there.
Completely closed down. Yeah.
COVID's put a huge spanner in the works into everything.
Yeah.
Even with our business, we had to shut down for a little while because most of our work was in occupied homes, so we had to shut down for a bit.
Yeah.
But we got rewarded with it in the end. The government paid us out with a nice little payment, so it was great.
It's good that support was there. And then, do you have a tool of choice or a tool brand of choice that you would always go to?
Tool of choice. I use the automatic taping tools, and they're a North Star brand, and I'd probably stick with North Star.
Yeah.
They're actually a really good brand. And just recently I bought a new sander machine. I went from an old cheap nasty Wall Pro sander to what's called a Merca brand, and pays to buy the dearer brands because you do,
especially when you're using it as regularly as you do.
You do get what you pay for. So this new machine I swear by that too. But as far as the finishing tools, I use Hyde. It's an American brand, and they're very common globally. So
Yeah, cool. And anyone else you've come across that you think we should speak to next?
Probably more plasterers if I'm the only one so far.
Yeah, I think so. We'll get another one.
Yeah, probably more plasterers. Be good to hear what they've got to say.
Yeah, there's a comparison.
Yeah.
Well, look, Jon, I really appreciate your openness, by the way. You've shared a lot about your journey and, the ups and the downs, which is, I'm glad to hear that things are picking up. I hope that tender goes your way. Good luck with that. And keep seeing the business grow. And appreciate you spending the time. I know you're a busy man, so appreciate you spending the time with us to talk about your experience. And hopefully there's people out there that will take some, try and avoid some of those pitfalls if they can, and from the experience, and also some inspiration from some of the things you went through and bounce back from. So thanks again. Really appreciate it.
So easy.
Yeah, cool. And thanks everyone else for listening and watching. And as always, rate, review, give us comments and feedback. And if you want to be on the show as well, hit us up at the email that's in the show notes. Until next time, thanks everyone. Cheers. Bye.
And that brings us to the end of this episode. Behind the Tools is brought to you by Tradify, job management software for your trade business. If you enjoyed the podcast, let us know by leaving a review, and be sure to tell your mates about it.